Hello guys, I'm Tristan Lambert, and today I'm going to be telling a terrifying story called The Cum Monster. The Cum Monster is a terrifying being that has been around for a very long time. The Cum Monster loves to cum, and he especially loves making other people cum by giving them cock and ball torture and other sex things. The Cum Monster is a mythical being that used to have a lot of influence and power and was feared across the world, primarily due to legends that were passed around about him. He used to give people cock and ball torture as punishment, along with other kinds of sexual torture. He usually dished out said punishment to anyone who wasn't wearing any socks, because that was a sign that they were extremely horny, and the Cum Monster liked that very much. The Cum Monster always enjoyed torturing people in sexual ways, because he thought that they didn't enjoy the torture that he was giving them. However, as time went on, people started enjoying the torture that was being given to them, which eventually led to the Cum Monster losing his power over time. People would purposely not wear any socks and break other rules just so they could receive some cock and ball torture from the Cum Monster. This of course would make the Cum Monster angry, as he thought that he was punishing these people, when in reality he was giving them a good time. The Cum Monster eventually became a joke amongst other beings such as Big Tim and Girth God, because no matter how hard he tried, the Cum Monster could never kill anyone except in rare circumstances where someone's testicles get squeezed off, killing them on the spot. Infections may also happen due to sharing tools with other victims. The Cum Monster is the only being that doesn't kill, at least not intentionally. That is because he would rather do sex things with his victims rather than kill them, like the average being or entity. The Cum Monster prefers to milk his victims rather than kill them. Other beings laugh at the Cum Monster for this very reason, as nobody actually fears him. The only reason people actually fear the Cum Monster is because he would write legends about himself to make himself seem scarier than he actually was, and it worked, at least until someone's first encounter with him. Once someone received CBT from the Cum Monster, they were no longer afraid of him. In fact, they wanted more cock and ball torture. It sometimes even got to a point where people would ask the Cum Monster for CBT, and even offer money to him in some cases, because they really wanted some CBT off of him. The Cum Monster hated it when people started calling him daddy or making noises. He was even more confused when people started asking for more. Hell, some even tried to give the Cum Monster himself some CBT. Eventually, the Cum Monster gave up and decided to cash in on his torturous and sexy methods. A bit like Mr. Hines did with his tins of beans. He decided to open up CBT clinics all over the world where people can pay to receive cock and ball torture and other sexual things. As time went on, these clinics became more and more established, which brings us to today. These CBT clinics now offer top-of-the-range tools, shaving equipment, and even free cum storages to guzzle from. Don't let all of this fool you though. The Cum Monster is still a terrifying being who has milked and tortured many victims in the past. He's milked so many victims that his cum storage is now bigger than the size of Uranus, and it still gets bigger to this very day. The Cum Monster is also a powerful mythical being who has been around for so long that he simply can't die. However, Big Tim considers this to be pathetic. If the cum monster catches you misbehaving or without any socks on, then he will capture you and he will give you cock and ball torture. He will also give you CBT if you spot him when he is covered in cum. That is because the cum monster is hungry for your cum at the moment and wants you to fill his cum storage up. Before he gives you CBT though, he will first shave your balls and arse by forcefully pulling out one hair at a time using a pair of tweezers. He will then wash your balls and arse so that they are nice and smooth. He will then proceed to give you cock and ball torture. First by squeezing your balls with his hands. He will also insert one of his fingers up your anus to massage your prostate. After that, he will use tools such as a hot and spiky vice grip, which he will attach to your cock and balls, and a hot, long and spiky metal rod, which he will shove up your ass. After a very long time, cum will eventually start gooshing out of your cock and balls, and liquid poo will goosh out your arsehole. You will continue to cum until your cum storage is completely empty. The cum monster will then guzzle all of that cum, only for him to goosh it out of his arsehole and into his cum storage later on. If you are a woman, then he will simply give your tits a long and cheeky squeeze until milk comes gooshing out. He will also finger you and use tools on you until your V-sauce comes gooshing out, just like cum. Those mummy milkers will be milked. If you're a nan though, then you better watch out, as the cum monster will make you goosh out fanny powder from your vagina, and he will squeeze and suck your tits so hard that they will simply disintegrate. Sometimes the cum monster prefers a quickie, so he'll simply give you a quick finish, just so he can move on to his next victim. He does this so he can empty other people's cum storages and fill his own cum storage up quicker. At other times, the cum monster will even get helped by the likes of Big Tim or Mr. Head, because Big Tim is very good at coming from behind, and Mr. Head is good at, well, giving head. However, these occurrences are rare, because Big Tim doesn't particularly like the cum monster that much, and thinks he's a funny, pathetic being overall. As for Mr. Head, his head kills people in terrifying ways, which isn't what the cum monster likes, so the odds of Mr. Head and the cum monster working together are even less likely than the cum monster and Big Tim. Big Tim does help the cum monster sometimes, because the cum monster is very good at guzzling Big Tim's cum from his spunkin armies. So if you do see the cum monster and Big Tim working together, then that is most likely why. However, Big Tim will always go in for the kill, and there is nothing that the cum monster can do about it. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter what the cum monster decides to do to you. If he decides to punish you, then you will be his next victim. Even if that means you won't die, it'll still be a torturous event where you'll cum more than you have ever before. There is always the small chance that you will die as well due to a cock and ball torture accident or an infection that was caused by sharing torture tools. So you better be careful out there and make sure that you always wear your socks. Then again, maybe you want to be his next victim if that's what you're into. Doesn't matter whether you're into gooshing out huge loads or not though. If the cum monster wants to make you cum, then he's gonna make you cum so hard that you will become his next victim. Throughout history, there have been many accounts of people encountering the cum monster and being tortured and forced to cum for him. Here are some of their accounts, told from a written perspective. There was this one time where I was captured by the cum monster for not wearing any socks. He gave me cock and ball torture until cum gooshed out my cock and into his mouth in a disgusting manner. He then spat it into a huge cum storage looking vat. I could vaguely remember other victims that were in the room with me. One was dead because his testicles had exploded, and another had poo gooshing out of his arsehole, which gave the room a horrid and putrid smell. Another victim was a woman aged no older than 19, having her tits squeezed clean of all of that milk. The cum monster then gave me cock and ball torture and made me cum extremely hard. He then guzzled my cum down his throat, and I was then allowed to leave. So I did, and I never got captured by the cum monster again, though sometimes I do wish that he would capture me again, because I do miss coming for him. I was so afraid of the cum monster, that is until he captured me for the first time. It was a late afternoon in the year 1369 when I decided to leave the house without any socks on. Not even a minute later I could hear hefty breathing from behind me, so I turned around as quickly as I could, and I saw him. He stood so tall and towered over me and looked really angry. He quickly swept me off my feet and blindfolded me. The next thing I remember is waking up in a dimly lit hallway being dragged by him. I was terrified as I didn't know where he was taking me. Eventually, after what seemed like forever, we entered a dimly lit room where I could see his other victims all tied up. He then proceeded to give me cock and ball torture. At first I hated how much it hurt me, but after he started fingering my arsehole, I began to enjoy the experience a whole lot more, until I eventually cummed. He then told me to leave without question, so I did. I ran away from wherever he put me. I never saw the cum monster again after that day. I do sometimes leave the house without wearing socks though, because I hope that one day I'll be able to receive cock and ball torture from him once again. I remember first hearing about the cum monster when I was a little girl. I was terrified at the thought of what he could do to me, so for most of my life I always wore socks. I never even took them off to have a bath or shower. That was until one day I forgot to wear them and left the house. As you can expect, the cum monster caught me and took me to his lair. He then squeezed my tits so hard I lactated milk all over the place. He then slurped up all of that milk and added it to his cum storage. I'm now no longer afraid of the cum monster. In fact, I hope he does squeeze my tits again, because I think it feels nice. I was walking down the street when all of a sudden I heard a noise from behind me. I turned around to see the cum monster standing there, covered in cum. I was terrified. I thought he was just a legend, a story used to scare kids into behaving themselves by being home on time, that sort of thing. But no, standing in front of me was the cum monster himself. He then pounced on me and everything blacked out. I then woke up in a dimly lit room, tied up and terrified. In the right corner of the room, I could see him. The cum monster slowly walked towards me until he was right in my face. He then started squeezing my balls as hard as he could until I passed out. The next thing I remember is waking up to him filling up a vat of some sort, which was filled with lots of cum. I decided to run away after seeing that, and I haven't seen him since. I remember this so vividly. It was a Friday afternoon. I was relaxing in a park somewhere, shoving a cactus up my ass! When, in the distance, I saw something strange. It appeared to be some sort of being covered in a weird white substance. I didn't think anything of it and went about my afternoon. Then as I was walking home, I could hear footsteps come from behind me. I turned around to see it again. This weird being covered in a weird white substance. He then rushed towards me and everything blacked out. The next thing I remember is waking up in a small, dark room. I was the only one there, or at least that's what I thought, until I could feel a sticky substance start dripping onto me. After tasting it, I realised that it was cum, but it was already too late. The cum monster then started shoving a sharp, spiky object up my arse, and started squeezing my testicles using a spiky vice of some kind. I later found out that he actually set my cactus on fire and was in fact shoving it deep into my poor anus, and there was nothing I could do about it. I eventually cummed and he let me go. I still occasionally catch glimpses of the cum monster from time to this day. However, I never got captured by him again. It was a cold December night, many years ago. The sky was littered with stars, as there were no clouds that night. I was drinking hot chocolate in the living room, watching TV, when I heard a terrifying scream come from outside. I put on my slippers and dressing gown and opened the back door to have a look. There was nothing there. I decided to turn the porch light on, and that's when I saw it. A terrifying, massive being covered in some sort of liquid. I really couldn't tell you what it was. I could only watch in horror as this being began to slowly walk towards me until it suddenly stopped in its tracks, looks to his left, and then darts off. I've never seen someone run that fast. I told my friends and family about the incident, and they all told me that it was the cum monster. And they also told me the legends that surrounded him. Some say I was lucky to have not been tortured by him, or others say I was unlucky as they themselves found the experience to be enjoyable. What terrifies me to this day though is what could have scared off such a terrifying being, and so quickly. That question still keeps me up at night sometimes. After that night, I never saw him again. I was fighting in the army when all of a sudden I get knocked out from behind. I wake up in a room that smells disgusting and is so dark that I can't see anything. I look around the room and that's when I see it. A huge, ugly being that seems to be covered in cum. He flicks on the light, revealing all of my mates, tied and gagged, and making horrible noises. This being then quickly approaches one of my mates and starts squeezing his testicles, causing him to scream so loud that his gag falls out. After a while, his testicles explode, killing the poor sod instantly. The being just stands there and starts sobbing, and that's when I realised that I had been captured by the cum monster, and he just killed someone right in front of me. My mate's death seemed to have bothered him, as he clearly wanted the experience to last longer. He then started to slowly approach me. The cum monster didn't know that I had untied myself, and had a plan up my sleeve, however. He gets close to me and starts squeezing my testicles, and that's when I strike. I quickly get up and start to squeeze his testicles as hard as I can. This causes him to start coming all over me, which is exactly what I wanted. He is quick to get out of my grasp and quickly slurps up the cum that is now all over the floor, and that's when an absolutely huge being bursts into the room. He looks me dead in the eye and says, "I'm taking it from here," and grabs the cum monster from behind, whips out his penis, and begins inserting it into the cum monster's anus. Jesus Christ, did this being have an extremely large penis. It was so huge that I couldn't even comprehend it. And then it dawned on me, it's Big Tim, and he's taking the cum monster from behind. After I realised this, Big Tim proceeds to thrust at lightning speed, causing the cum monster to moan and start calling Big Tim a daddy. Big Tim then told me to leave. I'd seen enough at this point, so I untied all of my mates and I legged it out of there and didn't dare look back. I dropped out the army after this experience, as I never wanted to experience that again. Only one other person made it out alive in the end. Everyone else got pounded to death by Big Tim. My last mate died recently due to an anal infection caused by one of the dirty tools that the cum monster shoved up his arse, meaning I'm now the only survivor left. So I decided to research him more and read other encounters people had with this being. It seems like I had a particularly bad experience, because it's rare that someone actually dies to the cum monster. But everyone but me in that room did die that day, and those screams one of my mates made as he died an agonising death or having his testicles squeezed still haunt me to this very day, and I haven't been able to get a good night's sleep since. All of these stories were from a long time ago. Whether they were telling the truth or not, we will unfortunately never know. However, what we do know is that the cum monster really is out there, and we do know that he wants your cum, and he will make you cum if you're not careful. Then again, maybe you want him to milk you dry. If that's the case, you should still be careful, as there's still the chance that you may die. Is that really a risk you're willing to take? Despite the cum monster being such a terrifying cum dumpster of a being, there are people who have claimed to have encountered the cum monster before, and here are some of their stories. The first story comes from a 39-year-old man in 1969. He was in China one day doing some Chinese things when, in the distance, he claimed he saw some kind of large being covered in cum. When he saw this large being, he knew that it was in fact the cum monster. He decided that he wasn't going to risk his life for sexual pleasure, so he decided to run away, all the way out of China in fact, never to return again. The second story comes from a 44-year-old woman in 2004. She was in England one day, on a hill of some kind, drinking a cheeky pint of Stella, when, in the distance, she claimed she saw some kind of large cum dumpster of a being. When she saw this cum dumpster of a being, she knew that it was in fact the cum monster. She decided to risk her life and get her tits squeezed by the cum monster until milk started gooshing out of her mummy milkers and poo gooshed out of her arsehole and Vsauce gooshed out of her fanny. She loved the experience and lived to tell the tale. The third and final story comes from an 18-year-old man in 2011. He was in Uzbekistan one day, shaving his arse crack, when, in his bathroom window, he claimed he saw some kind of large cum-covered being. When he saw this cum-covered being, he knew that it was in fact the cum monster. His balls were already nice and smooth, so he smashed his own bathroom window and shoved his smooth and clean testicles into the being's mouth. The cum monster proceeded to bite the testicles, causing the man to cum huge amounts of cum directly into the cum monster's throat in agonizing pain. He then swallowed and gave the man a quick finish. The cum monster then left without saying a word. All of these people were lucky, but they survived the cum monster and didn't become his next victim. Recently, people have claimed to have captured the cum monster on tape. This would be a first, as that would mean that the cum monster is the first being to ever be caught on tape. If that's the case, then it's most likely due to the fact that the cum monster never intentionally kills anyone, unlike other beings and entities. As you can see, the cum monster is clearly visible in all of these tapes. Whether these tapes are real or not, that is for you to decide. All I can say is, these people are extremely brave if they actually manage to capture the cum monster on tape. Overall, the cum monster is quite an easy being to avoid. That is, if you even want to avoid him, that is. But you should still be careful when you encounter the cum monster, because you may not be able to handle the agonizing amounts of cum that will goosh out of you if he decides to capture and torture you. There's always the risk of death as well, as you can never be sure if an accident or infection will happen or not. So, is that really a risk you want to take? Well, you may not even have the choice if you dare leave your home without wearing any socks, because as mentioned before, that's like an invite to the cum monster to do whatever he wants to you. There's also the risk of Big Tim pounding you to death from behind as well, because even though Big Tim doesn't like the cum monster, they still mutually benefit each other sometimes, because they both have a love for sex and cum. The cum monster just prefers to make people cum and guzzle, while Big Tim prefers to do the coming himself. The only reason there's tension between these two at all is because Big Tim wants to take control of the situation. Big Tim doesn't come to fill any cum storage up. Big Tim comes to kill people, usually from a spunkin' army. This creates tension between the two, simply because Big Tim refuses to fill up the cum monster's cum storage. There is even the risk of dying an agonizing death to Mr. Head, because even though this is extremely rare, there's still a small chance that Mr. Head will appear when you're having your balls squeezed, and he will give you agonizing head until your penis falls off and you will die an agonizing death. Not only that, Mr. Head will eat your rotten corpse whole, meaning the cum monster won't even be able to fill his cum storage up, meaning he made you cum for nothing. You never have to worry about Big Tim and Mr. Head appearing at the same time though. Big Tim will simply want you for himself, so he'll likely get rid of Mr. Head so he can have you and the cum monster all to himself. So, you better be careful out there, otherwise things may not go as planned, and you will be their next victim. So, that was the cum monster. So if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe, and goodbye, and I will see you in the next video.